about the 3rd and a half day, somewhere around breakfast on the 4th day, I started to think for sure we were all going to really die this time because we were so hungry. We'd been walking about 9 to 11 hours a day. This was in New Guinea, and it was about 2/3 of the way into a 6-week trip, something like this. And we went for almost 4 full days without food. And you only carry enough stuff on your back to get you from village to village. The gathering, there's some pictures actually, I think in some of my adventure stuff that I put up on the website here, is every 3 days or so, you have a call out inside of a clearing, and guys show up. Maybe they know the way to the next village. The next village is a day away. Maybe it's 2 days away. Maybe it's 3 days. Maybe they don't even really know, and they're going to run away with whatever's on their back, or they're going to get lost, and then it's one big happy clusterfuck. Which is why you signed up anyway. If you wanted predictable, then you stay inner city. Well, not the inner cities I know. More about those later. And you're going to move from village to village, and you're going to try and collect. Well, if one place has just butchered a pig, maybe you can trade for some of that. Maybe another has pineapples or taro root or something that they've harvested or something, and it's sketchy at best. So you're going to lose a lot of weight, and probably the most single important part of your camping gear is going to be a great big, like James Clavell novel, like Shogun or Gaijing or whatever those giant, great big adventure ones are. And the reason is you want to start reading, you want to get about 3 chapters into it before you get on that long plane flight to wherever it is you're going. Nairobi, I'm talking about the highland jungles of New Guinea. If you're going to the Amazon, if you're going anywhere that's hard to pronounce or looks like a bunch of typos backwards, Myanmar or Zagreb or any of these places, get about 3 chapters into it because you are going to get the runs. And there's no way you can carry enough toilet paper in your backpack, and 1 drop of water on a roll of toilet paper destroys everything, including everything that toilet paper is around. A paperback can be laid out page for page on a stone under the great sun. Yes, the great sun that Napoleon looked upon, that Jesus stared up upon. And it will be warmed, and it can be dried out, and it can be passed around and read. And when you're all done reading and absorbing it, you can wipe your ass with it. Roth.com, teaching you how to survive. You don't really understand hunger until you're afraid there really isn't going to be another meal. And we went for about 3 nights. We were on our own. It was a young lady, girlfriend of mine that I trained up with, Kelly, for about a little bit over a year. We were in great shape. A couple of other buddies, Skip and John, and an interpreter.
Jungle studs.
And I believe we had 2 fellas that were with us at that time, and we were so hungry. And we spent the whole time, you're going to spend the whole time, you're walking and walking and walking in that jungle. And the whole time you're looking up, because if there's any kind of squirrels, any kind of tree possum, which is like a giant squirrel or something, or a teddy bear. I'll eat a fucking teddy bear after 3 days of nothing to eat. And I mean, not even a trace of peanut butter left, kind of nothing to eat. And again, I guess, I've been hungry in other states of mind, other contexts, and, you kind of know, okay, if I can get through the next few days, they'll find me, and then we'll find something by the end of today. If nothing else, even if we run out of gas, somebody will pick us up and they'll have some peanut butter and jelly, and we'll make a sandwich or something. But here, we really didn't think we were going to have anything to eat at all. And it was really dark. It's rainy. When you say jungle, a lot of times, it's like when you say California, you think all those blue skies and summertime and babes in bikinis. Well, yeah, blue skies, but that only happens around Christmas. But in the jungle, it's like something from time forgotten. You expect a brontosaurus or something from a Bruckheimer movie to come lofting up after you. There's not a whole lot of sunlight. There's not a whole lot of cheeriness. It's that kind of bruised purple, sort of, I don't know, prehistoric something or other. It always looks like it's going to rain. It always looks threatening, and that's why there's not a whole lot of tourism in places like just outside of Port Moresby or, you know, some of these outlying islands. You used to go into the interior of some of these little atolls and whatnot that are volcanic, and it really does look like something that you grew up with, you know, Tarzan or some such. And that can be alternately really attractive, you know, and hey, I really want to adventure on this. And that can be terrifying too when it starts to get nighttime and the night shift kicks in. And the night shift is way sound attentive. The crickets sound like electric bandsaws. They're not just creaky. That's something that, you know, old Pa in his bibs overalls. This is some shit like from prehistoric, you know, they're like 6-pounders or whatever. I woke up and there was a cricket on my, he was making off with my sleeping bag, actually. I chased him for maybe 20 paces. I drove a toothpick into his heart, and I hid under the bag knowing that his cousins were going to come after me. And survived to tell you the tale here on Roth.com. We're the bomb. Raining and it's pouring, and you don't even bother setting up tents anymore. In fact, the tents have been destroyed. My tent was destroyed about 4 nights earlier when I was so exhausted. I very stupidly put my tent up a little bit too close to where there was a little bit of a river starting to run. And when it rains in New Guinea, man, it rains. This is where they invented rain. This is where they put the R-A in rain, okay? And it just doesn't stop. And it's like you get 360-degree rain. There's not just the kind that comes from above, but you get the kind that comes from the side. And somehow you get rain that comes up, and it's kind of gloppy, and it's really stingy all at the same time. Every kind of rain that's manufactured. It's like the Walmart of rain. And I didn't think, you know, I was so exhausted that I just kind of curled up inside of my sopping wet sleeping bag, but it's not a feather sleeping bag. It's the kind that still retains, you know, the heat, even though it's sopping wet. So I'm crawled into this. I'm like, I'm inside of a great big, what should I call it? Well, I know what to call it, but it's too horrible. We're not popular enough yet for me to make jokes like that. I'm inside of a giant Q-tip, and I'm rolling around, and I zip myself into the tent. And it was a little too close to where the river was, and pieces of the sides of that little river were building as I was sleeping, and the mud was sloughing off into the water. Luckily, the water is only going about as fast as you go at a slow trot when you're running. And I woke up at the bottom of the river, and my bag had rolled off, you know, the pegs had pulled off out of the mud and rolled down the river, you know, down the bank and under the water, about 3.5 feet of water. And I woke up being like waterboarded in Guantanamo or something. And luckily I had actually, it was my fingernail clipper that I had with me was in my pocket. And I pulled that out and used the, whatchamacallit, the file that was real sharp. And I used that to rip open my tent, which I regretted for the rest of the trip. And I should have drowned. And but I cut the bag open and got myself out. And so I was already having some troubles as far as, you know, setting up for camp, as in I don't want to set up anything anymore. Neither did anybody else. And so what you do is we don't even bother setting up a tarp. You just cut down some saplings and position 4 points like this, and then throw a bunch of giant leaves over. And the leaves are like as big as elephant ears. They're huge. And that takes about 5-10 minutes, and then you don't have to lug things around and out around with you. And we'd sleep like dogs, just sort of pile up on top of each other and go for heat, because higher up into the Star Mountains that we would get, you got to cross over the Star Mountains to get down to the Sepik River. I know it sounds like a nursery rhyme. There's no fucking nursery rhyme. And the higher up you go, the more freezing it got. It was like freezing. So we had to sleep like dogs. You just sort of pile up on top of each other. And you're not just sitting huddled like dogs, and I mean that, like how dogs hug together for warmth, or wolves do. I've seen it on television. You use each other for warmth here. And we'd sit under this tiny little lean-to. I thought, how many thousands of miles did we come for this adventure? And that's not adventure until the shit comes out of the skies. And speaking of coming out of the skies, it also comes out of the ground in New Guinea. You are constantly in mud up into your knees. In fact, there's a very famous old movie that I grew up with from the very early 60s called The Sky Above, the Mud Below, about some Dutch fellas who had crossed, I don't know, from one side to the other of the map. I think New Guinea is about the size of Texas, second largest island in the world, or something like such. Don't quote me, but I'm in the right neighborhood there. And I grew up watching that adventure and had identically the same adventure without even trying. So if you ever want to watch, you know, beat for beat what we experienced, then The Sky Above the Mud Below, I think that was 1961. It's in black and white.
They have never seen white people before, but they don't seem perturbed. They make a symbolic barrier between themselves and us. To them, we are people from another world. How would we react to Martians?
In New Guinea, they speak a dictionary's worth of patois or pidgin English. There's a dialectic, whatever you want to call it. It sounds like Mick Leahy and the Taylor Boys, who were the first Australian explorers, you know, to actually get in and around there in the early 20s. Anything big is Bikpella, B-I-K-P-E-L-L-A. And, well, you're certainly a big fella, aren't you? You know, this kind of thing. And, you know, how do you pronounce that when you're missing half your teeth, or, you know, you're chewing betel nut and, you know, what, you're sitting in the jungle and big fella, big fella, whatever, big fella. The only people who have been really around in those parts of the jungle most frequently are missionaries, you know, guys from the aviation, God-fearing Baptist something or other. And, you know, they're going to proselytize, and, you know, they look to spread the faith. They're the ones who drop the newspaper bales all over the jungle. The world's most smoked newspaper in the hemisphere, the Port Moresby Post-Courier something or other. It was famous for many, many years. That was the heading under the headline, because the Missionary Aviation Baptist Fellowship would deposit large bales of newspaper, all the old newspapers. They'd take them up in the old Cessna airplanes, dump them all over the jungle. The natives would grow their own natural wild tobacco and then roll it up, you know, instead of rolling papers, they use big pieces of newspaper. It's a big thing to sit in the middle of the clearing, and they break out the big piece of wood that they use it, and they crunch up the tobacco, and they tear off, and they roll these great big spliffs and sit around. And they use that along with betel nut, which is, I think, probably the most popular get out of your normal frame of mind kind of an experience available outside Western culture. You'll find this all throughout Asia. You'll find it all throughout the mountain cultures and the jungle cultures. And it's betel nut. You can buy this in a can in Indonesia. You can buy it through all of the really interesting countries right off of the shelf, like Cambodia, Myanmar, and the Thailands and so forth. Betel nut, it's called. And you take a little bit of the areca palm that grows, all around California, but it's those little tendrils, they look like wicked witch fingers to me. And you break that off, you keep a little piece of bamboo or a little jar of whatever, and they put bird lime in it, bird poop, let it dry out. I know it sounds horrible, and it is horrible. And they let it dry out until it's a powder, like a really viscous white powder, really like Ajax kind of a consistency. The pepper is a pepper because it's really hot and spicy, and millions of people do this. I'm not just making this up for ratings. I would if I thought I could get ratings. But take this little hot pepper. In fact, this is probably going to lose ratings in this next move here. Take this little hot pepper and scoop some of that powder up. You're chewing up the betel nut, okay? And you can buy betel nut all throughout the jungle. Natives trade it openly in front of all the little infirmaries, the general stores. You can find it for sale in the stands in front of the government buildings in Port Moresby, etc. And you take a piece of the nut, looks like a chestnut perhaps, you chew it up, and that tastes a lot like a number 2 pencil Eberhardt, I'm thinking, from junior high school. Remember how we all tried at least once to see what that would taste like? Tastes like betel nut. And you chew that up, but you don't spit it out. You dip the hot pepper into the bird lime, and you get it inside, and you kind of coat the inside of your mouth. And as your mouth starts to go a little bit numb, you spit. And everybody, every tribe, every different group of people has a different way of spitting. You'll see signs, again, in pidgin language, it's called, it says, "No spit 'em on floor, please." At the airport, you'll see this. You'll see cars going by where there's a long red streak that runs along the side of the car because somebody was doing more than 20 miles an hour and they went to spit. And the reason you use that hot pepper is it's spicy, it's hot, and you dip that bird lime because it makes it really bloody and snotty and red. And you can spit it in a stream like chewing tobacco, and you can target it onto a guy's shoe like in a cowboy movie. You know how they always do. They go, and the guy looks down, and then he looks up, and you know it's about to go off or on, depending on what neighborhood we're talking to tonight. And then there's another tribe that you can tell it was them because they're weaving things, and they do like I used to do with sunflower seeds. And this is all grade school stuff to me. I could never have the patience like to bite one and then throw it away, and take it and separate it and then eat one, chew it, and put the other 2 things like this. I would take like 9 of them, put them all in my mouth, chew it up into a nice salty pulp like this, and when nobody was looking, go and make a great big napalm cloud of doom, right? That would go like this. Hopefully there were no family pets immediately adjacent, but that never stopped us. Others will do that kind of 3 o'clock in the morning sort of a thing where the guys like at the bar, although they're awake, whatever, but you get a great big mouthful of that nice red gooey. It's sort of like ginger ale with some real like red licorice and ginger ale. Can you imagine how gooey and milky and that would be? And then just sit there and go. And let it just sort of get down like this. And just snap off. And, everybody has their own, their own variation. I come from American, baseball kind of background. I go for distance. I go for velocity. I find that way more impressive, especially in terms of, social interactions. That's what I can bring to the table that perhaps others may not. And this is not again, you see this in every echelon of everywhere. Is this not one of the endearing scenes when Lenny DiCaprio says to, what's her name on upper decks of the Titanic, no, you got to give it a good pull. We're giving it a good pull right here on The Roth Show. And I like this one there. Now that I'm a little older, I like it. All right, we're all getting older here by leaps and bounds. Roth Show, don't go away. We're going to chase you. You can buy Pidgin English dictionary for whatever it is in these different countries from the Missionary Aviation Baptist Fellowship, something or other, in the, like the Pickwick bookstore. I got it in Hollywood. You can order it up. And every tribe who's had some contact, and a lot of them have had very minimal contact with white boys or any variation thereof, speaks, I don't know, maybe between 10 and 40 different words of whatever. However, a lot of the folks that I work with barely speak 40 words. We discussed that, and half of those are swear words with a lot of inflection and facial contortion. So, you know, if you get used to doing hand moves, and nothing is more common than somebody going, no, hamburger, hamburger. No, hamburger looks like this. And you take the top and you put it here, and then you put the ketchup and you put that there like this, and then you put the top back on like this. And you go, see, and that's a hamburger. You want some hamburger? And see, no matter what, the guy knows exactly what you're talking about. Pizza, you go like this. Well, actually, that's an insult in 14 different countries, unless you do it this way, in which case it's still an insult, but it's meant towards yourself. So you got to be careful. If you get used to slowing down a little bit and being able to act out things a little bit, the ultimate charades game, is it, perhaps? Or, you know, it's not really Trivial Pursuit, because you're only going to discuss things of paramount importance around a campfire. And I've been around a few. Sitting around the best campfire, though, in New Guinea was the Big Pella Balaeus Mixmaster Belong Jesus. And you start off with Big Pella. Anything that is big is a Big Pella. Well, you're certainly a big fellow, aren't you? Well, if you got a mouthful of beetle nut and you're just a little bit stoned, and you've been out in the sun all day, and you're going to say big fella, you say big fella. That's how I sound until happy hour. And that being stated, Balaeus, well, that's balance. People balance when they walk or run. Birds balance in the air, so maybe it means fly. Fish balance in the water. And so Big Pella Balaeus, something big that's balancing or flying or walking or swimming, but it's moving. It has transient quality to it. Mixmaster is old slang, kind of 1950s, maybe early 1960s, kind of a slang that, like Betty Crocker style, for egg beater. And, you know, something that does that when you take that. It's not pre-electric, and you turn it like this. And I knew that from an Australian friend. My godfather, in fact, was an Australian fellow who went to university with my Uncle Dave, and had a lot of contact with Australian folks growing up. And Mixmaster, or an egg beater, is what they would call that. And belong, well, that's B-I-L-O-N-G, that belong me, well, okay, that means that is mine. Or this camera belong you, that means that's yours, but you know, because of my face paint and my spear, I'm going to take it from you. Belong me now, huh? And you begin to get the gist. Jesus, well, Jesus is Jesus everywhere. Bruce Lee, Che Guevara, Jesus. 3 biggest T-shirt franchises in the history of mankind, and perhaps even before then. So Jesus is Jesus. There's no mistaking Jesus for Che Guevara. Well, there is sometimes, but not in this context, certainly. And with that in mind, what we were discussing, after much chewing of betel nut and much sitting around and hemming and hawing and drawing in the dirt with the magic, the original sketch, etc., we came up with. It was the first helicopter that the tribe had ever seen, approximately 10 months before we had showed up in their clearing. That was only the second time that they'd ever seen anybody outside of their own immediate tribe and, walking distance by about a week or 2. So they described the first missionary helicopter that landed. It was the big fella mixmaster that came out of the sky, and it belonged to Jesus. And how did they know that it belonged to Jesus? Because some missionaries got out of the helicopter and gave them a Bible. Sort of reminds me of all those great cannibal jokes we all knew and loved as we were growing up. Why'd the cannibal cross the road? To eat the other guy. How many cannibals does it take to put in a light bulb? I don't know. We used to know, but somebody ate the results. Cannibal walks into a restaurant, says, "I'll have just a safara to the vadala." And the guy goes, "I'm sorry, sir, that's the waiter." Cannibal says, "I know." Kid cannibal says to the father cannibal, "Hey, Dad, teach me how to hunt." Dad says, "Sure." They walk down the path about a mile outside the village. Kid turns to his dad, sees this skinny cannibal chick walking down the path. He says, "Should we eat this one?" Pop says, "No, there's nothing but skin and bone there. You're not going to get any nutritional value." They wait a while. Kid says, "Hey, how about this one, Dad?" Great big gal comes walking down the path. Pop says, "Nah, you'll die of cholesterol. You're going to have heart problems," like that. They wait a while. Then this beautiful fashion model, quality, supermodel cannibal chick comes walking down the path. He says, "Pop, should we eat this one?" He says, "No, son, let's take this one home and eat Mom."